welcome to the Family Business Show. I'm John Broons, the Family Business Guy. Today I have a special guest with me, Danny Ciampini from Mondo Doro, small goods operation here in Perth. And Danny will be talking to us about his family business. I just want to take this moment to thank Tech, our sponsors for today's show. Thank you very much, Tech, a great peer networking organisation. I'm involved with them and they are great supporters of the Family Business Show. So at that note, Danny Ciampini, thank you very much for coming along.
Thanks for having me, John.
We want to hear a little bit about Mondo Doro.
Okay, well let me start off by congratulating you on being the recipient of a recent award. Congratulations, well done, well deserved. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
I'm being interviewed. Thanks, Danny.
That's all right.
Actually, yes, Family Business Australia had its 2019 National Conference only about 10 days ago in Melbourne. Over 500 people from around Australia and overseas came along. And I was fortunate enough to receive the Accredited Advisor of the Year award nationally for Family Business Australia. So I'm very thankful, very grateful to FBA for having this award available to advisors who advise to families in business. So thank you very much, FBA, and to those people, my clients out there that I speak to, and for those people that are also families in business that had something to do with my award. Anyhow, today is about Danny Ciampini and Mondo Doro.
Yes.
So Danny, tell us please, how did you, or tell us about Mondo Doro.
So Mondo Doro is a small goods manufacturing business, as you just recently mentioned. We manufacture cuts of meat, so prosciuttos, salamis, hams, mortadellas, all those kind of meat products that you would find in the supermarket. It is of very strong Italian heritage and Italian tradition. We are of Italian background. It started 24 years ago, 1995, at this stage, by 3 founding members, my father being one of them, my uncle being another one, and then a good friend of theirs who worked with them as a threesome. They worked together for 25 plus years in small goods together before they decided to venture out on their own.
Fantastic. They knew each other that well that they felt comfortable, 2 brothers understandably, but a third person who was not blood related felt comfortable enough working in with 2 brothers to start a business together.
Yeah, so my uncle, I mean, going way back, if you allow me the opportunity to go way back, my uncle left post-war Italy at a young age and came to Australia. My grandfather, so that's my father's father and my uncle's father, they're brothers, he died during the war. My grandmother had 5 children under the age of 6. There was no Centrelink or welfare benefits back in those days, so she had to ship off 3 of her children. My father went off to a boarding school where the path for him was that he was going to become a priest, learn how to be a priest, but that's where he got to be fed and educated because you couldn't go to school otherwise. One of my aunties went off to a convent to do a very similar thing, and then my oldest uncle went off and was raised by an auntie and uncle of his who couldn't bear children. So that's what happened. But at the age of, I think, 18, he came to Australia. We had uncles here in Australia, had already set up a business over here in small goods. So he came over on his own and worked for 4 years. It took him 4 years to raise enough money to bring his mum and his 4 siblings over together all at the same time, 4 years later. And that's how it is that they came to be in Australia. And as soon as my father arrived at the age of 16 on a Sunday, on the Monday morning, he was at work with his older brother at this small goods company. And they worked together there for 36 years. The third founder of Mondo Doro worked there with them for 25 years before they decided to then head off and have a go at running their own business. So okay. There's a lot of experience between the 3 of them. You can't put a price on the amount of experience the 3 of them have got when it comes to running a small goods factory.
So these 3 men decide to go off, start their own business. Start from scratch, or they bought something, or they found something, or
there was a little tiny operation, a little like a small goods little business in Osborne Park, which was it was a leased property, they didn't own it. Had very old basic machinery in it, but it was semi-established, so to speak. They purchased that, so they purchased the business, and it came with the machinery and with the employees that were there. It was very little, very small. They changed the name to Mondo Doro, and they started making their products their way. They didn't use any of the existing products because they're very passionate about making small goods the way that they know how to make it and the way they've made it for so long. And that might have been part of the reason why they wanted to venture on their own as well, so that they can carry on making the small goods the way they wanted to make it. So that's what happened initially. They purchased this little small business, changed it to Mondo Doro, and started there. My brother was invited to join the business from day one. So he was in hairdressing at the time. And I distinctly recall my dad coming home from work one day when he was at the other business, and he said, "We're thinking of going out on our own. We want, family to be involved. We want you two to be involved." And my brother just jumped at the opportunity immediately, and he's been there since day one. The other two founders have a son each as well, but then joined a little bit later on. One of them about 3 months later on, and one of them joined about 3 months later on, but then went off. He's in sales and worked with Schweppes for a while, and then came back into the business. So they've effectively been there almost from day one.
Okay, and you chose not to go on into the business at the time?
At the time, yeah.
Was it Dad's offer? Was it the type of offer? What was it that...
I was kind of already on my own path, on my own journey. I graduated from high school, went on to university, then went into dentistry in the capacity of dental technology. So I got my qualifications as advanced dental technology. It's a diploma. So then I worked as a dental technician for a while. Then I set up my own laboratory, my first own laboratory. That went really, really well, and that just grew really, really quickly. I then had a second one. So then I was owning and operating 2 practices. Then it was around about this time when Dad kind of made the offer, and it wasn't a fruitful or attractive move to have to give all that up at this stage. Because
you were having fun.
I was having fun, and we were quite successful. The lab was quite successful. We had secured the largest government contract on offer for WA. So we were servicing every regional dental clinic in all of Western Australia, including Christmas Island and Cocos Islands and those islands over there. So I had a lot of employees. It was a pretty big business. Yeah.
So you were already running a bit. So you got business knowledge.
Yeah.
Okay. What happened?
So about 5 years ago, or 6 years ago now, that business was doing quite well, and it was a reasonably attractive business to the point where these people approached me looking to ask if I'd be interested in selling it. I thought about it, had a meeting with my wife over the dinner table one night, and we kind of decided there and then that there might be a time later on down the track when we look to go and sell the business and there might not be a willing buyer. So the whole process took probably 18 months to 2 years through negotiating and coming up with all the clauses within it. But we did decide to sell the business, and that was 6 years ago.
So you didn't do what your dad did, arrived on a Sunday and went to work Monday?
No.
You sold the business and then went to Mondo Doro?
No. Sold the business, took a while, it took a period off. We were in the process of building a home at the time, so I wanted to get that over and done with. We travelled a bit, went to America, just sort of did that kind of thing for a while. And then, my dad was saying, "What are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do?" And I was contemplating getting back into dentistry in some capacity. But then Dad goes, come and have a look at the family business, come and have a look at the family business. And I agreed that I'd go there for 6 months and see what it was like.
So up until this time, you'd only ever worked school holidays really as a kid, teenager,
Yeah, so look, where my dad worked.
You knew what it was about.
Oh, definitely. I'd never ever had a school holiday from the age of 13. I mean, all my kids would go to the beach, would go to the movies and that. And from the age of 13, every school holidays, I was at where my dad was working and working. And that's pretty much how I got to spend time with Dad when we were young, because he was always working. Worked very hard, Saturdays, Sundays, weekends, public holidays, every day of the year he was working. And so we would spend time there. My brother and I, as little kids, we would go there on a Saturday and a Sunday to Dad's work and just follow him around. And
so your uncle as well, and
yeah, and cousins, yeah.
And it was a 7 day a week, 365 days a year.
Yeah.
Everybody was there.
So my uncle lived in a house on the premises of that factory.
Okay.
So he got up in the morning, walked out his back door, and he was at work, and finished work at the end of the day and walked into his backyard, and he was at home.
Okay, well that certainly does resolve a commute issue, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
So when we would have family functions, we would go to my auntie, my uncle's house, and we were pretty much at my dad's work.
Okay. So the three men, they decide to leave wherever they were, start a business together. They acquire a little business, and it grew from there.
Yeah, so the small goods community is, well, back in 20 years ago, is relatively small. You know, people got wind of what was going on and that these three had started their own business, and they were aware of the calibre of product that they were capable of producing. So as soon as the Mondo Doro brand was born, people wanted to inquire about it and were curious, and they started purchasing the product, and the product was, yeah, second to none. It's a very, very, very good product. There's, like I said, there's 150 years of small goods manufacturing experience between them. So it didn't take very long. It was within 5 years they outgrew that premises completely and moved into a purpose-built premises in O'Connor, which is where we are today. And that premises was custom built for us so that we can do things the way we want to do it. And that was probably the defining moment in the history of Mondo Doro. That was a step going into, it was a big step. They took out a big loan to have to do that. And it could have gone one of two ways, really. And fortunately, it went the right way. And since the move, they've just been growing.
So how did the three guys separate the work between themselves?
Right from day one, from when my dad started learning the trade, he was very hands-on. It's in his nature. He's a very hands-on kind of a guy. Very much a technophobe, not interested in you know, technology or computers and all the rest of it. Very much a labourer. So he kind of learned. He was taught by a Hungarian small goods master, on how to make certain products. And then at the age of 21, he started at 16. At the age of 21, he went back to Italy, lived in Italy for a year, went back over there a year, and just travelled around and learnt a little bit more about small goods manufacturing techniques in Italy. And he did quite a bit of travelling, you know, over the years and learning different techniques and different procedures and processes for small goods manufacturing. And then he came back and started adopting them into what he was doing. So without having a title or a role per se, he just sort of fell into the production manager role. That's his role. My uncle was more the administrator. He looked after overseeing the operations from an administrative point of view. So you could say he was the general manager if you had to give him titles. And the third partner, who's not related, he has an accounting background, very good with numbers and figures, and you know, company secretary, accountant, financier kind of a guy. So they're the sort of roles they just sort of fell into. But there's like an unwritten agreement between the three of them that they all know what they've got to do, and they just go to work every day, and they just did it, and they built an amazingly successful business. Yeah.
So after 15 to 20 years, business is successful. You've been in dentistry. You've sold your business. Your dad's saying, you've got to work, come in for 6 months. How long have you been there now?
5 years now.
Okay. So it's still a 6 month?
Still a 6 month project.
Okay. Do you have a contract?
I do now, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So when I first went in there, I went in there with open eyes. Like coming from the background that I was in, especially in dentistry, there's no grey areas. All your I's are dotted, all your T's are crossed. Everything is just procedure-driven policies for everything. I mean, we're talking about people's health, right? So it's very strict. I went into this business, and just to have a look. I said, I'll come in and I'll have a look, and I'll see what everyone's up to, and I'll see what everyone's doing, and I'll see how it operates.
So you weren't given a job. You said you'll try it and have a look for 6 months.
Have a look and
there is no job at this stage.
No, there's no job at this stage. So when I went in there, I was surprised and amazed by two things predominantly. One is the size of the business. I actually didn't even realise how much product they made and how successful they actually were. You know, like Dad would always bring the same 3 or 4 products home, and I thought that's what it was. And you know, it was found in the odd, you know, corner deli or all the rest of it. When I went in there, I was suitably surprised at the size of the company and the amount of product they were making. And I just thought, wow, this is really, really good. You know, like the other thing that surprised me is just the, you know, and it's a funny phrase. I don't want to, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to turn it down a little bit, but there was just the level of professionalism from an administrative point of view. It was almost non-existent. So when I went in there, I was surprised to find that there was no employee handbooks, there was no employment contracts, there was no OH&S policies, there was no documentation.
It was a family.
It was a family business.
It was not just a family business. It was the family that did things by conversation.
Yep.
Without documentation.
Yeah. And they come from a background, especially the 3 founders, where you go to work and that's your job, and that's the environment they grew up in. I mean, I was reading BRW not long ago, Business Review Weekly, and there was a stat in there saying that the average Australian male would change profession, not job, would change profession 4 times during their life, during their working life. These guys would not be able to understand that because they go to work and that's their job. My dad's been a small goods manufacturer for 60 plus years and he won't be changing professions anytime soon. And so there's a different sense of loyalty in the environment in the business environment they grew up in. So they were happy with the people that they had, and the people that they have had that sort of similar ethos towards work. Whereas nowadays, you know, with modern business practices, there's no sense of loyalty. So all of these sort of procedures have to come into place to make sure that you're identifying the right people and putting them in the right positions. Yeah.
Okay. So here we are today. You've been involved now for
5 years.
Over 5 years. What's different?
I think so, especially one of the things I did one of the things I kind of set my mind to when I first got there was to try and bond in a business level with the 3 senior managers that were there at the time. So each founder had a son each in there, and I was the 4th wheel, so to speak, coming in. And so I actually went out of my way to spend a lot of time with each of the 3 of them. One of them was my brother, but still, you know, the relationship I had with my brother was always outside of work. It was never discussions about work. When I went into the business, one of the things I really set my mind to was trying to attach myself to all 3 of them and try and find out where they're at, what their ambitions are, where they see themselves in 10 years' time, how they work together, how they collaborate. Was there any friction? Was there, you know, was there a platform that we could then kind of make a presentation to the founders at some point and say, your company that you've set up from scratch and you've given birth to is going to be in good hands from generation to generation. So that was kind of my main focus. And look, it was challenging. I was, you know, the new kid on the block. So, you know, some people frowned upon it, some people didn't frown upon it. I believe that I then went ahead and established good relationships with the people that I needed to, and I got a really good sense of understanding of what their history was within the business, outside of the business, what they perceived was going to happen or could happen, and just got a really good idea of where they wanted to be and where they wanted the business to be. And then I just went about starting to bring all their aspirations together and kind of moulding it into what we've got today. So today we've got some very formal structures, and we've got a really good level of professionalism amongst the senior management. We've got a board, we've got an advisory board, and we've got the senior management team now that runs the day-to-day operations of the business. And I think that it's been a 5-year process, but I think now we're at a stage where the 3 founders, whilst they were kind of reluctant to let the reins go, I think now they're comfortable in their own skin and they're comfortable in the fact that, yeah, the company's going to be left in good hands moving forward.
Okay.
I'd like to think that anyway.
So off the top of your head, the challenges that you faced, because you've come in, you've been on the outside, done your own thing for a long time, you've seen the processes that have been required in your previous industry, and you've come into this family-operated, very comfortable place, and you've mentioned a few things that you've seen and that you wanted to do. What would be some of your biggest challenges that you faced here?
Family dynamics is a big challenge in any family, really. Like I've heard people say before when referencing family, is that you've got your first geners and they're on one level, and then you go down to the next geners, and then you go down to the next generation again, and the dynamics and the values change, and people's opinions about what they want to do and where they want to be, and what the business is in their eyes changes from group to group. It's even the three founders themselves. I mean, they probably still have a different view of what it is that they're trying to get out of the business. It's just trying to align all those so that we can come up with a happy medium and making sure that everyone's comfortable with where the business is heading. I still believe, even though the business is quite successful, I still refer to it as a sleeping giant. I think it has a heap of potential to go even greater than where we are. Whereas the founders might say, we're happy with the level of success we're at. They're doing quite well. They're financially very stable. They could just decide this is as far as we want to go. So there needs to be there's a sense of hunger. I think now that the next geners we've kind of established a sense of hunger, this sense of desire to try and go next level. Hence the creation of, we've set up values, mission and vision statements, we've set up policies, we've now got the board, the advisory board. I brought in an independent on the advisory board, which is new to the business, so a non-family member, no connection to the company whatsoever, is sitting on the advisory board, and that's just been fantastic. Like initially everyone was going, oh no, you can't invite someone from outside the family in. And now that he's been in for a while, everyone's going, oh, he's brilliant, he's fantastic, he's great. So it's very, very good. In response to your challenges, I actually sit on another board for another company, and I had to travel to Adelaide for a business trip and meet up with some of the directors that were over there at the time. And whilst I was over there, I decided to go and visit a supplier that we use at Mondo Doro. And I just went and had a lunch with them, and we got talking and introduced myself. I hadn't met them before because they had always dealt with the people this was probably 2.5 years ago. And Mary, the wife, was an advocate for FBA. So she said, you've got to get in touch with FBA. FBA is I'd never heard of FBA. FBA is an organisation that just focuses on exactly what you're going through at the moment. I told her very briefly where we were at and what we're up to. And it's thanks to Mary that I ended up contacting an FBA person here, and then she pointed me in the right direction and gave me a few contacts, and FBA have been instrumental in helping me with the challenges that we faced to get us to where we are today. So
great.
That's how that came about.
So you talked about the challenge of the family dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What about working other challenges that you might have come across? I mean, you talked a little bit about the processes and procedures. What sort of challenges did you face in trying to get them professionalised? Yeah,
look, again, it's change is something that people are not willing to adopt. And that's what I found. The thing I found, like I was saying before, the thing I found with the three next geners, so my brother and my cousins and that, is that they would go to work from day one, and they were being kind of moulded or groomed into taking over their father's roles. So they were just going to work, set in their ways, and I think all three of them would say comfortably today, so I hope I'm not speaking out of line, but I think all three of them would say that they kind of became stagnant. They just went to work every day and they did what they had to do. They knew that they were serving their fathers and the business, and they were very good at their jobs, very, very good at their jobs. But it wasn't really, there wasn't a sense of ownership, even though the founders are still the owners, there wasn't a sense of ownership amongst the three of them to have that desire and that passion to then go to the next level. So the biggest challenge for me was trying to fuel their desire to say, look, you know, one day, however, this is going to be partially yours. So, you know, let's try and take the reins now and let's not wait for a trigger.
My assumption is that this has changed, obviously.
Yeah.
That you've been quite successful in getting them to change their picture.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And you can see there's a different spark in their day-to-day, you know, even my brother. So you can see there's a different spark in his eyes. They come to work, there's a willingness, he's now, you know, he'd be the first to admit that he's not very big academically and all the rest of it. He's sort of been groomed to do my father's job and all the rest of it. But I've kind of taken him off the tools or off the bench, so to speak, and now he has an office and he has and he's taken on the R&D really, really well. So he's into research and development and things that we've never done before, and now he's starting to do the things that my dad was doing, and he's on the internet looking at new processes and new procedures and new manufacturing techniques for small goods, because obviously there's been advancements as there are in any industry. So you've got to keep up with, you know, modern day best practices. So he's kind of embraced that a little bit, and you can just see he's coming to work with a different vigour. And Adrian is also the same. He's now, you know, much better equipped with how to deal with meetings and trying to drum up new business, and there's just a new spark. It's exciting. It's an exciting time going to work every day.
How often do you meet this next gen little group?
We see each other daily.
So you actually bump into each other in the corridors. You have walking meetings. Do you sit down and have production meetings and sales meetings?
So these are other things, other processes and procedures that we've put in place. Adrian and I sort of handle all the administrative side of things. His office is right next to mine.
Okay.
If I'm on the phone, he can hear what I'm saying. If he's on the phone, I can hear what he's saying. But we speak daily, literally daily. He'll be out on the road, you know, going to meetings and all the rest of it, but we would speak every single day. Rob, his office is just down the corridor, probably 10 metres away, and I would speak to him daily as well. Adrian would speak to him daily as well. The three of us make an effort to get together at least once a week, informally, at least once a week, but formally, a minimum of once a month. We set aside, you know, this is what we do. Then we've put in processes where we've now identified heads of department, which we never had before. So we've got heads of department.
So we've got some roles coming in here.
Yes, we've got an org chart, which we never had. So now we've got an org chart, and every box has got a little title to it, and it's got a name in it. So that's all well and good.
Job descriptions for everybody?
Job descriptions for everyone, yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Employment contracts for everyone, yeah. Employee handbooks for everyone. So now we're working on a very defined strategy to go forward, because like I said, we've just established this advisory board. The three founders are now the directors. We've had a couple of board meetings, but the beauty is that now the founders are embarking on extended holidays, long periods of holidays. So my dad's just come back from a 10-week holiday. Nick's been on a long holiday. John's been on holidays periodically throughout. So it's been very, very good that now we've got this advisory board, and we're going to be presenting like a strategic plan.
I'm hearing a great level of trust between the older generation moving past and the next generation that's taking a hold of the reins of the business. Would you see this, had you not come into the business, where would you see the challenges? Because I'm trying to stick to challenges here, right? So if you hadn't sold your business and come in for 6 months with a positive attitude, what do you see could have happened?
Look, I've had...
You know, it's a what-if situation.
Yeah, it is a what-if situation.
We'll never see it.
It is a what-if situation. And I've had confidential, you know, conversations with the next geners, so to speak, and I can comfortably say, hand on heart, that at one point, each one of them had said to me, at one point, had you not come in, I was on the verge of looking to go elsewhere. Yeah. But I don't want to say that I'm responsible for that not happening. I just think that I'd like to think that I'm responsible for having a part to play in conjunction with them, and getting them to stop thinking like that and start recognising the potential that this company does have, and that if we can start working together. And look, there was many times when the four of us, or the three of us, or however many of us would confront the founders and say, look, you need to understand that this has to be like this. It has to be like this. Their attitude to a lot of what we presented would be, oh yeah, we'll address it another day, or we'll sweep it under the carpet and we'll worry about that when we need to. But I'd like to think that I had a part to play in convincing the next geners that we're a united front. We are very much a united front, and that we would go to the three founders, and if we went there and we said, this is the plan, this is what we want to do, here's the pros, the cons, here's an example A, example B, blah, 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 and you presented everything on the table in a manner where they had no choice but to make a decision there and then we can move forward. And that's a lot of what we do now.
I think there's something to be said for your approach in coming back into the business. I don't think anybody necessarily verbalises the challenge of transitioning a family business, but in your case, when each of your equals in that next gen have made a comment such as, had you not come in, we were considering leaving, there needs to be a voice for the next gens. There needs to be an opportunity somewhere along the line there, I think. And you having had success outside, there was also a willing ear in the older generation to listen and allow things to move. This is just an observation from the outside. So I congratulate you on this, because I think that's fantastic, that you've been able to pull it all tightly together. If I wanted to say some tips to next geners, or to the founding generation or the older generation that's thinking about transitioning, what are some of the tips that you might give?
My biggest tip that I could give to people right now, and this is based on my experiences, and other people might see it differently, but I am a big advocate of removing yourself from the family business initially and going and earning your stripes outside of the family business. And I think that's the biggest challenge that I felt with the three that were there, because they were there from day one. They didn't really understand or appreciate what's going on in the outside world, so to speak. And because I did, I came in, and yes, like I said, I was frowned upon because I was a new kid. There was a lot of things saying, what do you know? You haven't been here since day one. There was a lot of that kind of language. But I have a 20-year-old son now who's doing accounting and finance at university, and he will graduate next year. And he's already said to me at one stage, I'll come and work. And I said, no, you won't. You won't come and work. You'll go out and you'll earn your stripes and you'll get a job and see what it's like to be an accountant or a financier or whatever for someone else. And then when you're good and ready and we think you're qualified enough, and then we'll look. And if there's a position available, then we'll look to see if you can come into the family business. But it's not just a right. You haven't got a right just to join the family business because you're the son of one of the executives, so to speak. So my biggest tip would be, take some time away from the family business and do that. And then when you're good and ready and you understand what it's like, then you can bring that outside knowledge into the business. And I think the business will be better off for it. Okay.
That's a great one for the next geners. What about the older generation?
Older generation, it's it's case by case. Italians are a very proud race. They keep their cards close to their chest. I wouldn't have it any other way. I honestly wouldn't have it any other way. But even to this day, I'm approaching 50, and I'm still my dad's little boy, so to speak. I'm still his son. There's always going to be that, like my brother, he's a couple of years younger than me, but he's still doing his apprenticeship, under my dad, and he's been doing it for 25 years. So anywhere else, his apprenticeship would have lasted 4 years. But there's, my advice to them is that they, whilst they probably don't keep up to speed with modern day practices, and that's all well and good. I don't expect them to. They need to have a little bit more trust and a little bit more faith in the ability and the talents or the skill set that their offspring have and can bring to the business. And I'm a firm believer, and I said it from day one, like when I went there, I said, I'll come here for 6 months. And we went through this process of setting roles and setting job descriptions and coming up with an org chart and having little boxes. And I was the very first one right from day one saying, we need this, but if you feel that I'm not the right candidate to fill that box and it's the best thing for the business, then you get the person that you feel does. And that's the way we've approached every single box on the org chart. You're not in that box because you're the son of somebody. You're in that box because you have the skill set to perform the duties that are required by that role. And that's the way we are now. And we're equals, you know, like the senior management team, we are equals. And we, amongst us, we appreciate and acknowledge the skill set that we bring to the company. And now I think that we've demonstrated, it's only been about a year now, but now I think that we've demonstrated to the founders that we are. And my tip to them is now that they're starting to let go of the reins a little bit, that they can rest easy and feel comfortable that the company's in good hands.
Danny Ciampini.
Yeah.
I'll get that Italian character correct.
Yeah.
Danny, thank you very much.
No problem.
Really, I appreciate you coming in today. My special guest, Danny Ciampini from Mondo Doro. Again, thank you to Tech for sponsoring today. If you want to communicate with me, john@johnbroons.com. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel, John Broons, the Family Business Guy. And I look forward to seeing you again soon.